How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? In this video, I'm going to share a very peculiar and very interesting journey happened yesterday on 9th of September when we met Kai-Fu Lee at Grab in our One North office. Before we get started, I'm just very happy to announce that my ebook, Think Deep, Find Truth Behind Things, has been published on Kindle. So if you're interested and if you understand Chinese, feel free to take a look at it. Your support will mean a lot to me and I really appreciate it. All right, so let's get started. If you don't know who is Kai-Fu Lee, just a very short introduction of him. So he's maybe one of the earliest VP in US tech companies in the 90s actually. So he was the VP in Apple, and then Microsoft, and then Google. So that's quite a journey. Also, he's a PhD and a great scientist or researcher in terms of natural language processing. So in the 90s, when he joined Apple, he developed a kind of NLP system to understand what the humans are saying and also respond to what they said. And I believe that is definitely the early version of Siri at that time, okay? And also he's an investor in China, so he invested in a lot of AI companies since that is his field. Yeah, that's basically about him. He's quite famous, at least in China, maybe not in my generation, okay? Maybe in the 80s people, because he's one of the earliest angel investors as well, back at that time. So in this video, I'm going to share 4 points that left me most impressive memory about his speech. So that speech is mainly to talk about AI. And then in the Q&A session, he said a lot of things about his career and his life. So the first thing is about AI, of course, in the speech. So, AI is definitely a very hot topic nowadays. And data is the oil for the AI, just like the oil to the industry nowadays. And when talking about data, there's definitely one thing, which is data privacy, how to protect the data. And he mentioned, for example, Facebook nowadays. Facebook actually selling data. This is like a public secret, okay? Everybody knows Facebook will sell the data to third parties. But why is that? Why they will sell the data? It is because their value is combined with the capitalism, okay? So investors wish them to make money and ask them to push forward. So when there's no substitute, okay, Facebook will still make a lot of revenue from it. Maybe people will switch to Snap, for conversation purpose, but that's not a total replacement for Facebook. Therefore, for Facebook, I believe before 2020, their time is very good. You can see the MAU, the revenue just increase steadily. But after TikTok, this great competitor joined US market, you can see actually since 2021, the market share for Facebook decreased very much because the young people in US, they care about data privacy. They don't want to, be public under everywhere. They don't want their data sold to other institutions or companies, right? I have to say TikTok is totally not a substitute or replacement for Facebook, but that does change the young teenagers' behavior, user behavior, and that is a very iconic stuff. Kai-Fu also mentioned about Netflix in comparison to Facebook. When Netflix doesn't sell the user's data, or maybe just not so much data to the third parties, it is because people have the replacement for the Netflix, right? The job for Netflix is to make users happy, while for Facebook is to make themselves happy, make the investors happy. For Netflix, if it doesn't make your user happy, if it doesn't respect your user behavior, if it doesn't respect your user privacy, your users can easily switch to other streaming platform. There are dozens of them. And you can see Netflix is no profit at all. Of course, most of the reason is because they have to maintain the users' happiness, right? Because they value their customers. And this leads to how data should be protected at Grab, because Grab is the largest, platform in Southeast Asia for online food or transport, right? There are tons of data. For me, since I'm from ID group, I can view all the users' data, but I can see the access to those data very limited. Only few of us have the access to those data. And second is, I can see the morality, right? The value for Grab is very good, at least in terms of data privacy. Grab would not sell the data like to third party company or something, right? I think that is the thing that they did really good. And the second interesting story Kai-Fu mentioned is how he found his interest. He mentioned when he was young, since he was born in Taiwan, he asked a lot of whys. And why not is a thing that teachers even don't like to hear about, right? So why you do this or why not you do that? And therefore, he went to US for school when he was 11 years old. And in the college, the second year, he took a natural language processing course, and he found it so interesting that the computers can react to human. So he thinks that's so cool. So interest is the best mentor of his life, and I totally agree with that. If you see nowadays for most of people, especially for young people like my age, 20s, most of people just don't have interest, right? Maybe their interest is like computer games or something else, but that's not their full interest. Interest, I believe, is something that can guide you in the long term, in your career, in your life. Video games, definitely not. Like for me, sometimes I would build a website and publish my book. Actually, I spent almost 2 years to finish that book. So you can see that those kind of interests actually guide me or drive me moving forward. So I believe everyone should have some interest, at least it's better for your life. And third thing he mentioned is everyone should be CEO in something. I think that this idea actually triggers my mind, it's something quite new to me. From my previous experience, I just think someone needs to be the owner of something, right? It's like the ownership. I own this service, I own this code, I own this business. But when you think in terms of CEO perspective, you're thinking like not just from your own opinion, right? It's like from the bigger picture of things. For example, if you're a CEO, you definitely just won't focus on your work. You have to focus on how to collaborate with other companies, right? How to drive around, etc. So if you're a CEO of something, definitely when other people have concerns from you, you will answer them and how to coordinate with each other better. So he says like during his career, he promoted a lot of people, right? And all those people are definitely an expert or CEO of this certain area. You definitely will not promote someone who doesn't have a full picture of a certain area. So that's also a very important thing. And the last thing I would like to mention is his second industrial career, which is his challenge in SGI. So SGI was a company that was in 90s. At that time, it was a very big company in Silicon Valley, and it raised a lot of money. So Kai-Fu was quite trusted at that time by the CEO. He was the VP at that time. They were building a 3D browser. Just for information, Chrome was not even created at that time. That was the earliest pioneer in internet boom. So at the first time I think, wow, the 3D browser is so cool, man. It's like you can rotate your browser and find different things in different areas. So currently the Chrome is like you search something, right, and you find it. But for 3D browser, it's like you can rotate maybe your browser and then you can find something. And that's quite similar to metaverse because you can connect to different people. It's not isolated. It's like live in the whole world and can reach to whoever you want. Since the CEO quite trusted him, he invested a lot of money and hired a lot of people. And as the things going on, even though they build out the product, but the thing is like the user didn't buy it. And later, when SGI faced some financial difficulties, they had no choice but to lay off like over 100 employees. And at that time, Kai-Fu thought like he was quite responsible for this mistake. it was a mistake. The reason is quite similar to what Steve Jobs said. When PM build product, when they're designing something, usually they would prefer like to talk to the engineers. Okay, what are the fascinating thing you can make for me, right? Instead of reaching the users first, asking what do you need, okay, what can I do for you. So this is a very big difference. Therefore, I believe for most of engineering leaders like VP, if their background is engineering, then when making the decision can sometimes lean to the engineering side instead of taking care of like what the users want. So even though you build some fancy stuff, right? If the user doesn't buy it, it won't succeed. And when the company is going down, layoff is definitely something. Okay, so one last thing. Actually, I didn't prepare this in my schedule, but I just recently thought about another thing. Currently a lot of companies laying off, like Shopee, recently laying off a lot of people. Okay, the whole Taiwan team was laid off from Shopee and also C. And also recently, Foodpanda is laying off its employees. Their reason is they just want to make their business profitable. So I believe usually laying off employees, you can have two reasons, okay? First is your company face some financial difficulties. You don't have money in your bank anymore, and therefore you have to lay off. That's the first reason, okay? The second reason is you want to maximize or utilize your employee structure a bit, since sometimes the old employees, they will just stay there like doing nothing, right? So you want to optimize your employee structure. That's also a good reason. But I just don't think any companies should give a reason that to just chase the profitability by laying off the employees. That is not an excuse. That is so short-sighted. What should you say when your company expands in the future and needs to hire a lot of employees? What if your companies need to expand in the future and hire a lot of employees? The people just won't trust you anymore. Okay, I don't have much comment on this. I just think, at least from Grab's perspective, I think it's good because it is not laying off any of the employees, even though the macro economy is not very good. I believe from Grab's perspective, it is still seeing the long term. And I'm quite grateful for what Grab has offered me and also for this society. I believe the leaders at Grab is at least doing a good job in this perspective. If I've watched here, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I think this is time for this video. So I do encourage you to check out my book. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, okay? And thanks for watching. See you next time.